Welcome to Show Zero. This is a show where I'm going to tell you what this podcast, what this Podquest is all about. All right. So I'm going to start out with a quote. Like I do, I'm going to start out with a quote every time. And this is one of my very favorite quotes. It doesn't really have anything to do with philosophy or religion or science specifically, but that's what the show's about. Nevertheless, here's the quote. An invasion of armies may be resisted, but not an idea whose time has come. That's by Victor Hugo, one of the giants of literature and just of thought in general. And it's a jumping off point for me on a lot of things. And so this is the podcast that I've wanted to do for a long time. I figured I'd start right out with that quote and jump into it. So this is how it's going to work. Let me tell you briefly how the podcast got started and where it came from and where it's going. This show started a long time ago. It started when I was a kid. It started when I was in school, when I was in elementary school. And when I was in elementary school, and even in junior high and high school, instead of listening to the teachers, instead of sitting there and taking in all of the academic stuff, what I did is I started looking out the window. I started looking this way and that, and it really got restless. But I started focusing on something that could make it a lot better for me, and that was a blank piece of paper. I took a blank piece of paper out, put it on the table, and said, this could be anything I want it to be. This was a field of infinite potential for me. I could do whatever I want. I could go wherever I want, explore whatever I want. That's how I approached school. Instead of listening to teachers, I looked at a blank piece of paper and said, this is it. This is the field of infinite potential that I can use to explore anything I want. I wanted to know the big things. That's what I wanted to explore, is the big questions of existence. And those things were things like, I'll read from my notes a little, is the color that I see as red the same thing that you see as red? Or is it what I see as blue, but we just call it the same thing? All right. Next, I want to know, when I leave a room, does everybody and everything in that room simply disappear? That's what I wanted to know when I was a kid. And most importantly, perhaps, I wanted to know, well, how many more days is it until summer? All right? So fast forward 50 years from then, about 50 years, 49 years, 48 years, something in that range. I'm now 60 years old. And this show is exactly like the blank piece of paper. This show represents to me infinite potential. I can take it anywhere I want to take it. I can go anywhere with it wherever I want to go. And I can explore anything I want to explore. And by the way, you'll see that where I continuously mess up things, you're going to have to just deal with it. That's the way it goes. But anyway, that's the same thing as the paper, okay? And the same thing still holds. I still want to know the answers to the great big questions out there. That's what this show's all about. And now those questions have turned into things like this. How did the universe come into existence? And how did life emerge? What happens after we die? And you might think that those questions, that set of questions, is a lot different than it was then when I was a kid. But we're going to find out if that's the case. And see, how we're going to do it is we're going to structure the show in two ways. There's going to be interviews with experts in the areas of science, religion, and philosophy. I want to have everybody come in and just give me they have the knowledge, they have answers. I want those answers. Let's have them. That's my thinking. All right. And so we're going to do interviews every 3 or 4 weeks. But in the meantime, I'm going to do what I'm going to be referring to as rule of three shows. And what those will be is topics from science, religion, philosophy, maybe other areas. And I'm going to just elaborate on them and explore things that we're going to be exploring with these experts. What kind of questions are going to come up in these interviews? What kind of things we want to cover. All right. So that's what's going to happen. That's how this show is structured. Rule of 3 shows, followed by and interspersed in between interview shows with experts in the areas of science and religion and philosophy. So let me tell you a little bit about the symbol Exus. The name Exus, then I'll get into the symbol in a minute. The name Exus is a short version of a theory of everything, if you will, very layman's perspective, theory of everything that I've been working on for the last 20 years. I've spent 20 years looking at everything I can possibly find in terms of fundamental questions, answers to those questions, and I've been really digging into that, and that's what the whole show's about. But I've really boiled it down into a long argument of sorts, a long theory of where things are going. But I got to a point where I formulated a name for it, and then the name was just too long. It's just this crazy name, this long, drawn-out, scientific-ish name. And I thought, well, every time I mention it to someone, their eyes immediately glaze over. So I decided I'm going to boil it down into a single word, and I invented the word Exus to cover that. And so it's a stand-in. It's a stand-in for this theory that I've got that I'm working on that is driving this entire show. That's where the name Exus comes from. Let me also now turn and tell you what the symbol's about. You see the symbol right on my hat. You see the symbol in back of me. It's really all over the studio here, and pretty much all over everything. The website, which I'll get to in a minute, when I start promoting this shameless self promotion. But in the meantime, the symbol, it's you see, it's got bold colors, it's got sharp edges, it's got sharp points, and whatnot. And it's because the artistic aesthetic that I like. That's just what I made this symbol up a long time ago, to symbolize the theory that I've got working. But also, it kind of speaks to a bold vision of the universe and our place in the universe. So I'm going to keep it just short for the time being on that, and kind of let it go. But that's what the symbol's about. That's what the story of Exus is about. And then I just also want to point out that this show and my theory, everything that this show is about, is really about evolution, about change and motion. And so as time goes by, this show is going to change. The show is going to take a different direction. Who knows? And I'm really super excited to see how that works. For more on the show, for more about the Exus the Podquest, the name, the symbol, whatever it is you want to know, any questions that you might have about what we're doing here, just please go to our website at exusthepodquest.com. That's exusthepodquest.com, and give us a shout. Tell us what kind of comments you have, what kind of topics you might want us to cover, any questions you might have, and you do that. You go there, and we will be going ever forward.